America rules, and so does real American beer. Get some, brother.
All right, and we are here with another episode. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're here. We're back, and this is another episode of Sports Business Insider. I am Denzel Snipes. This is Sean Russey, the sports agent himself. So, hey, man, how's it been? It feels like it's been a couple months, man.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a slow time here. Now that NFL free agency kicks in, we're back. But everything's been good. How you been doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing really good. I do know that coming up here in about a month is WrestleMania, so we'll be on and doing all the revenue and the numbers behind that one. Things kind of got in the way. I wanted to do one for Elimination Chamber. Perhaps we could still touch on that one whenever the time comes, and just kind of combine it with WrestleMania and stuff, and see how they're doing um, with the Netflix deal and everything. But everybody out there, before we get started, just want everybody to tune in to all of our shows. We got the Gauntlet on Friday nights, picked off on Wednesday nights. Confidential Season 4 just started. We had an episode just last night. Sideline Sports Show, the flagship show, on Tuesday nights as well. We got our guys at First and 56, the Indianapolis Coach Show, Terrible Talk, our Pittsburgh Steelers show, of course, Hawk Talk with Dave DeRocher and Walt Thurman III, Seattle Seahawks show. So, and also Sideline Sports net.com. That's our website. We have our shows on there, and also we have articles, great work, great reading from our staff. So please go and check it out. So, in getting started here, you see the subtitle says "Paper Tigers, but not what you think." I'm talking about NFL free agency, and in particular, the new Higgins Chase deals. Hence, paper Tigers. Tigers making a lot of paper here coming up. T. Higgins signed to the tune of 4 years, 115 million, and Jamar Chase signed to the tune of 4 years, 161 million. Jamar Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. It seems like whoever signs that contract and gets that title, they hold that title of highest paid non-paid quarterback for seemingly 2 weeks, and then it's like somebody else takes it. But we're gonna roll right into it, and Sean, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, no, and like you said, that title kind of gets tossed around. So 2 weeks from now, someone else will get an extension that's higher. But it's a good point. I'm not sure if you saw it. This is something JJ Watt said, that this is why it's better for these teams to get these deals done early, because then you have to pay the next guy, even if it's $500,000 more. You have to pay him more.
Mm-hmm.
And they played around with Higgins and Chase for over a year now. They could have extended them both last year. Chase decided to play out his last year essentially. After a small holdout, Higgins, this is now his second franchise tag. So they had a negotiation window last year. So they probably ended up costing themselves some money by not getting these done last year. The media is estimating about $20 million they could have saved if they got these deals done last year.
Right.
What we do know is together annually now they're going to cost about $70 million, 69.6 or somewhere in that exact range. Which means they're paying their offensive trio, Burrow and the two wide receivers, 117 per year. Surprisingly, they had almost 200 million in cap space going into those deals, but they obviously ate a lot of that. That's down to 97. There's a deal for Hendrickson on the horizon that's believed to be a 1-year deal between 30 and 35. So now you're down to 65, 60, 67 million, and you still got the draft. So they're going to be up against the cap here very quickly, even though it seems like a large number to have space with. But then, we also have to field a defense, which is the questions like how much money can they now invest in the defense? And, how many draft picks can they acquire to make the defense cheaper and maybe at least talented enough so they're not playing 42 to 40 football every Sunday.
Absolutely. And so with that being said, Currently, the Bengals are paying Burrow, Chase, and also T. Higgins. It looks like it says about 117 million per year. Now they did put Hendrickson on the market, who was arguably their best defensive player. That'll bring their cap space down to about 60 65 million heading to the rest of free agency and the draft. And now they can also touch on rookie contracts for defensive players. You want to expand more on that?
Yeah, so this is kind of an opposite model than what most teams have done early on. Obviously Burrow is not early on in his contract, but this is an opposite model, loading up the offensive side of the ball with the money, versus maybe restructuring Burrow's contract, lowering his cap number, letting Higgins play on the franchise, maybe just signing Chase, and then loading up the defense and seeing if you've got one more run at this, with the current roster. With the way they've taken this, though, obviously, like I said, it seems like Hendrickson's sitting on a 1-year deal, and if he plays well, then if 30 to 35 was his 1-year number, what does he get next year? They would probably price themselves out of the Hendrickson race come next season. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do. Obviously, like we said, I believe their draft focus will now be, strictly defense. I wouldn't put 100% on it, but I could see them just going all defense for the entire draft, because at this point they've pretty much got what they've got on the offensive side of the ball, and they're going to need some help on the other side. And so, like I said, it's going to be arena football every time you play the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, pretty much. And they went on ahead. They were lucky enough to keep Higgins, and they got these deals out of the way, because here in about a couple years, you're gonna have to sign. You're gonna have to find a way to pay Chase Brown as well. Now, other free agency contracts. The Commanders gave Kinlaw $45 million. Packers gave Aaron Banks $77 million, and he ranked 53rd out of 72 guards according to Pro Football Talk. And Seattle is paying new wide receiver Cooper Kupp $45 million. A pretty banged up guy last year, and they paid the guy $45 million. And how many years was that they paid him? 2 years?
I believe it's over 2 or 3. I believe there's a void year on that third year, so they could eventually, go in and rework that and actually keep him a little longer. But I think you're getting cut past his prime at this point. The injuries, unfortunately, have really taken away from his speed. And, if you look at the tape, he really struggles to separate anymore. He makes great catches, but he's not getting space. And that's tough. You're leaving a smaller window for the quarterback when you're doing that. And as good as Sam Darnold is, you're not trying to force balls in there at this point. The way defenses are flying around, you've got to have some sort of window to throw to. I think it was a move on Kupp's part to go stick it to the Rams and go to a division rival. I just don't think, maybe it was the necessary move for Seattle at the current time.
Then only that, but you figured, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and then the Aaron Banks signing was another one that was highly touted, and it's questionable to me. You've got this guy ranked 53rd, and you're giving him $80 million to protect Jordan Love, who, not that he can't move around, but this guy has gotten beaten time and time again. And then you give him $77 million. I think they could have looked elsewhere, maybe even picked up 2 offensive linemen for that price, and probably higher ranked ones.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And one more thing about Cooper Kupp is with Cooper Kupp, I actually was surprised that he went to Seattle. Seattle, who seemingly is going into rebuild mode now. You figure if this is the twilight of your career, if you're Cooper Kupp, you would want to go to a contender, right?
Yeah, if he wanted to really stick it to the Rams, you figure he goes to the 49ers or Cardinals, who are a little bit closer to the Rams in terms of taking that division. I think Seattle's kind of like Cincinnati. They really went off on the offensive side of the ball during this offseason. They grabbed Darnold, they grabbed Kupp, they let go of Metcalf, but they still have, the kid from Ohio State last year who started to come out at the end of the, come to his own at the end of the year. But I think defensively they're going to struggle again. So I don't think he makes that much of a win difference in terms of going to Seattle. I think they're still fighting for that last wild card spot, even with, Darnold. I don't think Darnold's going to have the same success in Seattle that he did in Minnesota. I think they're going to regret that number as well.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, if anything, Cooper Cup could have he could have went to Baltimore. You see, they signed DeAndre Hopkins, and since DeAndre Hopkins left the Chiefs, there was room for him on the Chiefs.
No, I would have definitely gone somewhere where you could just kind of be that veteran possession guy. And maybe, he's in a position to mentor young guys, but you're being paid like you're 1A.
Right.
And I don't think you're going to get 1A numbers out of Cooper Cup this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's get to some highlights here. So far, best money spent. Fowler to the Cowboys, 1 year, $8 million. Joey Bosa joining the Buffalo Bills on a 1 year, $12 million deal. He narrowly missed out on playing with his brother out in San Francisco. The Dolphins probably could have used him as well, but the Bills got to him, unfortunately, for Miami. And Devontae Adams went to the Rams to the tune of 2 years and $44 million. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Fowler for the Cowboys, that defense needed a little more oomph, especially since their offensive side of the ball is kind of rebuilding. Their defense has been solid though, and minus the injuries last year, I think you would have still had a top 10 defense for that team, but they were beat up. And that signing, I think, kind of even doesn't make it necessarily easier, but Parsons will face less double teams, with Fowler on the field. Bosa, I kind of wonder if the California state tax played into that, because the both of them playing with each other for the whole 2 weeks he was available. So I wonder if the Niners just couldn't come up to that number, or couldn't come up to maybe 15 to offset, what he's going to lose in California state tax. And he decided, I'll just go take this 1 year with Buffalo and maybe get a multi-year next year. But I think for the Bills, again, there's no risk in that. If he gets hurt, and you're out of it next year. And then for Adams, I think we saw towards the end of last year, we saw the old Devontae Adams, him and Rodgers started to connect again. And I think when you've got a quarterback like Stafford, you've got the young wide receivers on the Rams who do separate. That's why they chose Atwell over Cup. I think you're going to see Adams have a kind of a rejuvenated year here.
Yeah. And, okay, so some over and under reactions. This actually feels like it's a new segment, over under reactions. You want to touch on those real fast? Looks here. We've got a little news about thoughts about the Niners and also the Chiefs as well.
Yeah. So, early on the first 24 hours, I believe the Niners lost about 8 to 10 starters that ended up. Aaron Banks is one of those who signed for $80 million, but I think the total of those guys signed about $352 million in contracts between Hufanga and Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, Elijah Mitchell. And you saw the panic and the overreaction, but the truth of the matter is most of those guys didn't play a lot last year, and they already had the rookies from 2024 playing in those spots. Dominic Puny, Mustafa the safety. Their biggest thing is that they don't have someone in house for Greenlaw. They haven't had someone in house since he accidentally fell on the sideline during the Super Bowl to replace him. They had a struggle to replace him all last year. They have no one in house for Greenlaw. All the other guys that walked, they kind of drafted last year basically to let them walk. They planned on Debo going. Pearsall's already in the mix. You bring in a Demarcus Robinson who can also mentor Pearsall, along with Jawan Jennings. It looks like Ayuk's going to be out at the beginning. So, I think they're going to fight for a wild card. They're no longer that Super Bowl contender, but I don't think you're seeing them go 6-11 this year unless, again, they battle the injuries with McCaffrey. But McCaffrey's history is it hurt 1 year, he plays the next year. So this is his off year to not be hurt. So, 2027, we'll go be back to talking about, CMC being hurt again.
They still have Jordan Mason, correct?
They did trade Mason to the Vikings for a 5th round pick.
Did. They did.
They put a high tender on Mason, probably no ever intention to sign him to $5 million. But they did get a 5th round pick out of it. I believe they now have 11 picks in this year, and they're going to do what the Rams and Bills did. They're going to keep the pillars and kind of reboot quickly through the draft. Now you have to be correct to do this, through the draft, but that's what they're going to attempt to do this year.
And as far as the running game goes, you still have, he'll go into a second year, the speedster out of Louisville, Isaac Guerendo, who actually did pretty decent when he touched the ball last season.
And it's a deep class for running back. They could even be in the running for that kid from Boise State at that 11th pick. I mean, you add that kid to the Niners backfield, and it's almost like if CMC does go down, they have a little less to worry about.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
And
so,
in terms of the Chiefs, it's the same things that people saying the Chiefs are done. Um, I think they face some tough cap decisions just like the Niners. When you get good, you have to pay players. That's what happens if you want to keep these teams together and keep runs together. But they did go ahead and sign Jalen Moore and Elijah Mitchell, who actually played for the 49ers in those Super Bowls against the Chiefs. Elijah kind of shores up that running back position for them. Kind of a good, solid backup running back there that can spell the number one. And Jalen, on the right side of the line, he filled in, very admirably for Williams on the left. The Chiefs aren't even going to use him on the left as much, and I think they've picked up a little bit of a diamond there.
Okay, yeah, and especially in Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell's he's a bit of a fighter when he gets up to. Splitting those carries will be between him, Kareem Hunt. Should they start to bring him back, and also Isaiah Pacheco as well. I think Elijah Mitchell will fit very well into that backfield. Now, a bit of an underreaction. The Commanders moved to not only trade for Deebo Samuel, but then redo his contract. What about that one?
Yeah, and I get it. You're adding a veteran to that locker room for Jaden Daniels, but let's look at Debo's. What have you done for me lately? And let's be honest, last year was pretty bad. He's another one like Kupp. He relies on blocking and yards after catch because he doesn't separate. Debo's not going to kill you going long. He's going to catch the ball, and if he can juke you, then he can get off and running. But we saw last year he struggled to do that. Then he was hurt. I don't understand you already had him under a bad contract from the Niners. Now you've added more guaranteed money to that bad contract that the Niners are now sitting on $28 million of dead money on. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher there, especially it seems like Deebo may be headed towards the other side of his career now.
Maybe in the twilight of his career. I don't know if we'll see the same guy from 5 years back, especially like you said, considering that injury history. But now also,
and I think you'll kind of see what you saw last year with Washington. Early on, Deebo will be fresh. He'll add a little bit of that spark, but later in the season, it's going to be those young wide receivers that carried them to the championship game that kind of shine again. And McLaughlin, I think those are the guys who are going to stand out again, and Deebo's kind of going to be an afterthought.
Yeah, and Deebo is still being used as a bit of a Swiss Army knife. He's not really, crazy about playing running back. But if need be, you can still stick him back there to take the pressure off of Brian Robinson as well.
Yeah, even if it's 5 to 6 carries a game, I mean that's over the course of a season, you're talking 80 carries off of Robinson. That could be a huge help.
Yeah, it very well could be. Another underreaction: Packers spending $80 million on Aaron Banks is what mentioned before. A little bit more detail about this.
Yeah, and again, it's just the questioning of he obviously he wasn't even really hurt last year, so there's no excuse he was battling this, he was battling that. He was just playing getting beat. I think he ranked third amongst guards for holding penalties. Again, for the Packers to be so close and then to put that much money in a guard, God forbid Josh Jacobs gets banged up, and it's because of your new $80 million guard. I think in 2 years you're going to see them get out of that deal.
And last but not least, Najee Harris to the Chargers.
And this is a weird one, right? Because Najee has not dropped off statistically wise. I know playing with the Steelers last year, it looked like he was struggling, but if you look at his stats, he's been consistent.
He has.
His yardage,
it's been quiet,
his yardage has been within 50 to 75 for the last 4 years. And I think you put him with Harbaugh, Greg Roman. You've got a recipe where this kid is now going to bank on this 1 year deal, and next year he's going to set a new market.
Not to mention, he's going to be splitting carries with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. While both are two solid backs as well, they have a bit of an injury history as well. So should one go down, Najee Harris will fit in fine. Najee Harris being relatively healthy for his career so far.
And the pass catching ability he brings. Now I know, the other two, they kind of, went back and forth, whether it was running or pass catching downs. But I think when you've got that 3 down back in Harris, it's going to take pressure off everybody there. And if they can go and get Harris, even say 50 or 60 less carries, and he only gets 800 yards, but he's more yards per carry and more yards per catch because he's fresher at the end of the year, I think they'll take that all day, knowing that at some point in the playoffs, you're running into the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yep, all day, and you have to be able to establish the run in the postseason if you want to get anywhere. Just ask the Eagles. Well,
Yeah.
that's all we have for this evening. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Sports Business Insider. Tune in on all of our great shows on the network. So for Sean Russey, I am Denzel Snipes, and we will see you all later.
America rules, and so does real American beer. Get some, brother.